What can I say about UEA? I've been back in Perth for almost 2 weeks now, and let me tell you, it's really tricky adjusting back. To have all of the wonderful experiences that I was privileged enough to have had in the last 6 months, and everything to be exactly the same when I came back here. Yeah, it was difficult, but it made me appreciate every little moment that I had while I was over there. In the early weeks, it was all about getting to know people and finding my way around. It's huge, by the way, not in the American size of a small continent, but in a has everything needed to stay in the same area and surrounded by student housing way. I loved it. I stayed in the University Village, which was about a 10-minute walk from the sports park and the campus, and I was really lucky to have flatmates that I actually really liked. I was flat number 8 in our flat 6 family, and I grew to love them very quickly. That's something you learn when you're living in halls, is that you come to know people you're living with really quickly, and you can either love them or have to bear with them. When I'd climbed 3 flights of stairs with my heavy suitcase and finally stumbled my way through the doors to my flat, I turned to my right and there was my flatmate on the floor in the kitchen putting food away in her fridge. It was probably the most awkward of my introductions, but it's memorable. Later on in the week, the rest of my flat arrived, and I soon realised that this was going to be the best 6 months of my life. And it was. Let me tell you a little bit about the University of East Anglia. It's such a welcoming community and has everything you need to live comfortably. It's got shops, cafes, bars, a library, a sports park, an incredibly friendly union, a nightclub, clubs and societies, plenty of accommodation on campus, and then the help to find accommodation off campus. I had no complaints. The student life was perfect. In fact, UEA is number 1 for student life in the UK at the moment, and it deserves it. You get a feeling of being important and having your say. During the elections, you want to vote. We were having drinks one night in our flat, and all of a sudden there were these 2 girls just standing there in our kitchen with these flyers, and they said, vote for us. I was like, yeah, not really the best timing, we're about to go out, but the next morning I had a look at the flyers that she'd given us, and I ended up voting for one of them because I loved what she stood for and that she'd made that effort to approach us and really integrate with the group. A part of why the student life is good at UEA is also due in part to the fantastic array of clubs and societies that they have. There was no limit to choices, and if there wasn't the right club for you, you had the opportunity to create your own, which I wouldn't really have the guts to do. I found myself signing up for the climbing club with Rebecca, and since then I've never regretted my decision. I may be a bit biased here, but I would say the climbing club is one of the greatest clubs at the uni. Every single member in the club was really welcoming, and even if it took them a while to come around, I made some really special friends in that club. Maybe it's something about putting your life in their hands as you dangle, however high you are in the air. But I found it really easy to trust them as well, which is something that I usually find difficult to do. Sessions ran 3 times a week, and they would usually be followed by a trip to the pub with a drink or some food and just a lot of talking, hanging out. The greater days were those that we spent by the lake or by the river with a slackline and a jug of Pimm's to share. It was a really great time. I was told at the orientation that Norwich is one of the safest cities in England, which I could believe. In my first few weeks, the biggest headline was sightings of a giant cat, which I didn't see. I felt very safe, even walking in the dark at midnight with my friends to the 24-hour Tesco up the road for a sneaky bit of chocolate or ice cream. Going out to town and getting home, I felt really safe getting on the bus. Taxis were cheap, but sometimes buses were more feasible and also cheap, so there was really no loss. There is always something going on in Norwich. The waterfront has always got someone interesting playing. So I got to meet a couple of my new favourite upcoming artists, Ryan Keane and Joel Baker. There's things you get when you're studying abroad that you definitely don't get while you're living at home and going to uni in Australia. When you're living away and you're in a student-surrounded area, you really learn to be independent and how to cook for yourself, how to look after yourself, and just to integrate yourself into a social group and trust people. You're not relying on anyone else to keep you going. It's really you, and the people around you are in the exact same position as you. They have little money, they're there to study and to have a good time, and that's really all you want when you're at university. If you're considering studying at the University of East Anglia or even just visiting Norwich, I'd recommend it that you stopped considering it and just do it, because I can't see you regretting it, and who knows, you might have the time of your life like I did. It's wonderful. It was one of the greatest adventures of my life.